And this is the Adam Messer Show. I am your host, Adam Messer, and I am here today with my very special guest, Mary Kay Andrews. Welcome back, Mary Kay. Thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Hi, Adam. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
And everybody at home, thank you for tuning in because we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to be talking with Mary Kay today for an hour. We actually are doing a new little segment of the readers. We've got a couple of reader questions. We're going to be talking with Mary Kay about her new book called The Newcomer, which is a new novel that just came out a couple weeks ago. And so let me just do a little introduction. I'm just gonna do the I'm just gonna read about the newcomer, Mary Kay, and then if you would, just I know most people know who you are, but if you would just give everybody like a little brief, what you've been up to the last 6 months or so or whatever.
I can do it.
But okay, so here is the newcomer. Of course, it's available in hardcover, everybody. And let me adjust this mic just a little bit because I'm looking at the computer on the other side. The New York Times best-selling author and queen of the beach reads delivers her next page-turner for the summer. Letty Carnahan is in trouble. Am I saying Letty right? Letty Carnahan?
Yep.
All
Yep.
right. She's on the run from New York City, and she has a 4-year-old niece, Maya, in tow. And her sister, and her sister was found dead in the entry of the hallway of her glamorous townhome. Letty believes that she knows who did it, her sister's awful, money-grubbing ex-husband, Eli Wingfield. Letty can't forget her sister, Tara's insistence. If anything bad ever happens to me, it's Eli. Promise me that you'll take Maya and run. Promise me. But run where? The only clue Tara has left behind is a faded magazine story about a sleepy mom-and-pop motel on Florida's Gulf Coast. Certain the police and Tara's ex are hot on her trail, Letty leaves her own life behind without any backwards glance, knowing that she will somehow get justice for Tara, and sets out for her destination, the Murmuring Surf. The Surf, as regulars call it, is, is the winter home of the close-knit but quarrelsome group of retirees and snowbirds who regard this newcomer and her adorable niece with suspicion and more than a little curiosity. There's no vacancy sign swinging from the There's a no vacancy sign swinging from the neon motel marquee, but the motel's longtime owner, Ava DeCurtis, takes Letty in, offers her a room and eventually a job, much to the disapproved of Ava's cynical son Joe, a local police detective whose every instinct tells him that Letty is a dangerous fugitive, possibly even a kidnapper or murderer. As Letty tries to settle into her new life and help heal Maya's trauma, She's preoccupied as her late sister. She's preoccupied as her late sister's troubled past and connection to the motel are revealed, all while trying to deal with the attractive detective's unwelcome advances. Is Joe a would-be suitor or a cop determined to betray her confidence and put her behind bars? Now that is one heck of a blurb. That is one heck of a lead-in for a story, Mary Kay.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in The Newcomer.
Wow. That's very interesting. I'll tell you what, that it's neat because you always have these awesome murder mystery type ideas, and I know that it's crazy, but you seem like you come up with a new yarn every year. You have like this new awesome story that you're doing, so that's pretty cool. Would you mind giving everybody like an introduction, a little brief introduction of yourself and what you've been up to the last couple months?
Sure. Sure. Well, I grew up in St. Pete, Florida, which is right by where The Newcomer is set. The Newcomer is set in the real beach town of Treasure Island, which is on the Gulf Coast of Florida, outside St. Pete. I went to school to be a newspaper reporter and actually started my journalism career at the Savannah Morning News as a total green newbie many, 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 many years ago, and fell in love with Savannah then and have worked there twice. And my husband and I have rehabbed and owned 3 old beach cottages on Tybee Island. So I did newspapers for 14 years, ended up my last 10 years I spent as a reporter, a features writer for the Atlanta Journal Constitution. But I always had always been a mystery reader, and I had 2 young children at the time, and I thought it's time for me to leave newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It's hard to raise a young family when you're, speeding around covering stories. So I started writing in secret, And in 1991, actually, I got a contract for my first two books with HarperCollins, and I left the Constitution and newspapers in 91. And I've been doing this ever since, about a book a year. I think The Newcomer is my 28th novel. I also did a cookbook a few years ago called the Beach House Cookbook. So um, every year I come up somehow. I don't know. It's my job. I come up with an idea, and I sit down with my yellow legal pad or my black and white old school composition book, and my mind starts spinning, and I start scribbling.
That is awesome. I we actually that's when I first met you, is when you did your beach house cookbook at that first
Right.
event, and Marianne Gannon Popple introduced us, and that was really nice. And I thought it was so cool because, and I said this before we got on the air, everybody, but one of the things I really enjoy about you, Mary Kay, is that you're very humble and down to earth. And I know, like everybody, we just recently did a newspaper article for the Savannah Morning News about the Newcomer, and Mary Kay and I were talking about that. I have a lot less space in the newspaper, and I love doing the radio format so we can talk a little bit more about what's going on. But one of the things I really loved about what you did last year, you and your friends, you started this Facebook group called Friends in Fiction, because the world gets shut down and
Right.
people were looking for that outlet. And this is something new that, I mean, like not Zoom calls and all that stuff. They were not new, but that's what everybody went to. And you and your friends, you created this community online. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that came around?
Sure thing. There are five of us. It's myself, Mary Alice Monroe, Patty Callahan, Christy Woodson Harvey, and Kristen Harmel. And late last winter, early spring, we all had books about to be released. And of course, all of us, our publishers, pulled the plug on our book tours. So we were really panicky about, oh my gosh, how are we going to get out and sell these books, market these books, and also what's going to happen to the community of booksellers around the country that has been so loyal to us? And, how are we going to connect with our fans and our readers? So I had a professional Zoom account. And so I said, hey, why don't we get on a Friday, 5 o'clock happy hour rose call, and let's thrash around some ideas. And so we came up with this idea to do a weekly Facebook Live show. We decided to call it Friends in Fiction since we all write fiction. And we started out not knowing anything about what we were trying to do. But we sort of fumbled around, and, a big part of our mission from the very start has been to support independent bookstores because they've supported all of us for so long. So each week we connect with we partner with a different independent bookstore, and we ask our viewers, whatever author is on the show that week, we ask our viewers to order books from that bookseller. So they can order our books, and they can order the book of our guest, usually for a little small discount, maybe 10% or something like that. And that was important during especially the early months of the pandemic, because so many bookstores were closed. They couldn't open their doors to business. If they stayed open, they were doing strictly mail order business.
Right, right.
So eventually, after a couple months, we invited our first guest author, and we started off with a bang. Our first author was Kristen Hanna, who wrote her newest book is called The Four Winds, an instant New York Times bestseller. It's still on the bestseller list. And she also wrote The Great Alone, and of course, The Nightingale. She's got a Netflix, I think it is, Netflix series called, oh gosh, what's it called? I can't even think of the name of it, but she's got a big Netflix series. Anyway, Kristen was our first, she's a huge bestseller and a friend of the show, and she was our first guest. And, we were so technologically inept. She couldn't get her Wi-Fi connection, so we ended up with her doing the show with her phone held up
Mm, mm.
to her laptop. Since then, we've gotten a little bit. I think we've made great leaps with technology. We hired a professional
Oh, nice.
audio. Yeah, we hired a professional audio production company. They actually do the technical part of it, and we've had amazing guests. We had Delia Owens, who wrote Where the Crawdads Sing, Ellen Hildebrandt, Karen Slaughter. We had William Kent Kruger. So we've just had amazing lineup of authors. We celebrated our first anniversary in April, and we're still going strong. And we are about to cross the 40,000 member line, which is amazing to all of us.
Yeah, I think it's really cool because I actually joined that group after we talked for the newspaper interview, and it seems like they're a very nice community. You have a good group of authors and readers. They interact with each other, and it just seems like it's a really positive, upbeat group. People are talking about like what are they reading, and they share different things and stuff like that. And I think it's pretty cool that you did that.
Well, we didn't know what else to do.
Right.
We were kind of, backed into a corner, and so we felt we were sort of inventing ourselves as it went along. But we've been very gratified with the response, and we love doing it. Um, we love the community. They're people who love books. They love reading, and they love talking about books. They love hearing from different authors from all over the country, all over the world, really. We've tried to be a more diverse, have a more diverse group of authors. So that's been really rewarding and gratifying. We've had some really huge best-selling authors. We had Britt Bennett, whose book The Vanishing Half is, I don't think it's gone off the bestseller list in the past year. Nancy Johnson, who wrote the oh gosh, something about the lie. I'm half brain dead because it's Sunday
Oh,
of
it's
Memorial
okay.
Day
Yeah,
weekend.
it's okay.
And we tried to have all kinds of fiction. So,
hmm
uh, we skew kind of women's fiction, historical fiction, but all kinds of fiction. And so we welcome everybody.
I think that's a great. I think that's a great point. I want to actually use that as a segue for one of our listener reader questions. So everybody, this is like kind of like the first time I've done this on the show, and what I did was I knew Mary Kay was coming on, and I put the word out there asking if anybody had any questions that they'd like to share that we read on air, and we'll give a shout out for them. So the first one comes from actually she's a local author here in Savannah, Beverly Willett, and she has a book called Disassembly Required that she published. I think it was last year or the year before. But her book's also at e-shavers like yours are, and it says here, it says I've only ever published nonfiction and haven't written fiction since I was a child. But my first agent, who repped mostly fiction, told me she thought I had a talent for fiction writing, and others have encouraged me as well, which is a shock to me since I have no formal training or MFA. But I'm halfway through my first novel and having fun, but also feeling nervous. Would love any advice to have to a nonfiction writer switching to fiction. Thanks. And that's Beverly Willett.
Well, Beverly, I didn't have any experience writing fiction either until I did it.
Yeah.
And you don't, the great thing about writing is, you don't need an MFA. You don't even need a college degree. You don't need a journalism degree, which is what I have. All you really need is a pen and an idea. And so, um, I tell people who are just getting started in fiction, it's helpful if you can write a synopsis. And a synopsis is just sort of telling yourself the story of your story, and it gives you kind of a blueprint of what you intend your story to be, and it gives you some structure. So, story structure, beginning, middle, end. And I also think it's helpful, especially when you're starting out, if you have an idea of how you want your book to end. And I am not a person who outlines or storyboards or um, any of those methods of writing. Everybody I know, every writer I know, has a different way of going about it, and there's no wrong or right way to do it. But I do find that if you know how you want your book to end, that's really helpful because it gives you it gives you a direction, an idea of the direction you're going in. So I say it's like you have a roadmap, um, and with an outline or a synopsis, like that, then you know where you're going. You hope you start with knowing who your characters are, what they want, what their conflict is, and then you just go from there. And I am not somebody who writes multiple drafts of a book. I write all the way through and hand it into my editor, and she gives me a revision letter, and then I go back and rewrite and polish. But now, again, I've been at this for 30 years, so everybody has different ways to do it. There's an, as I emphasize, there's no wrong way to do it. And if you're, especially when you're starting out, try not to put so much pressure on yourself. Give yourself permission to have fun with it.
I think that's great. I remember last year when we were talking, and then we actually, when we talked a couple weeks ago, one of the things that you had said was that you were actually ahead of schedule with
Yeah.
your newcomer book when you're writing
Right.
that draft. And could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I found that more fascinating because you're a disciplined writer. You are a productive, disciplined writer, and for you to say, "Hey, I actually was ahead of schedule," that I was really impressed with that because you
I
do
was
have all those
impressed with
years.
it too. It was not my normal process. I look like a disciplined writer to the outsider, but on the inside, I'm a teeming mass of fear and self-loathing and all kinds of stuff like that. Um, the group of women, the Friends in Fiction ladies, we all write a book. We're all under contract for a book a year, and so of course I had a book due in October, and so we started doing these 7 a.m. writing sprints, and I was sort of the self-appointed sprint sheriff. So every morning at, shortly before 7, I would text everybody and say, who's up, who's writing, and what's your goal for today? So maybe your goal is only 500 words because you've got a busy day and you've got commitments, or maybe you've got the whole day free, and so you're dedicating yourself to writing 2,000 or 3,000 words, which is a pretty big chunk of story. Or maybe your goal is to finish a chapter, or to write a scene that's been, you've been having problems with. And so we started doing that, and it was great because it gave us all accountability. Because everybody knew that if they said, well, I ended up not writing, I ended up shopping online, or 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 going
Right.
down the rabbit hole on Facebook. They knew that I was going to say, "Oh, okay, you didn't write anything, huh?" But so the goal is, to be able to report back and say, "Hey, I wrote this many words. I finished the scene." I hadn't. I've started next summer's book, but had not been working on it. Hadn't been actively writing since March, which was pretty scary for me. So. Um, Thursday, I think it was, I started back to the 7 a.m. sprints. And so what I like to do, and what was
Nice.
really helpful, yeah, what's been helpful for me is to be disciplined enough to say I'm not going to break the streak. So now my streak is at 5 days, and I don't want to break it.
That is
And
wonderful. I mean, like
yeah,
there's like this energy behind that, isn't there?
yeah, you do build up energy, and you put yourself in the world of the book. Um, I have turned into a morning writer, which I never was before. So I put my laptop on my nightstand before I go to sleep at night. In the morning, I roll over, I grab it, and I start. And on a good day, start writing. So I finished the Newcomer 6 weeks ahead of schedule, which was unheard of. My editor didn't even know what to do about it. So, unbeknownst to her or to my agent, I write under contract. So, unlike a lot of beginners, I don't write a book and then try to sell it. My agent pre-sells my book, and I write it. I don't write on what's called spec. But this time, I finished early, and I had kind of an idea for a Christmas story. So I actually ended up writing a Christmas novella that'll be out September 28th.
Oh, that is awesome. I saw that, and you know what I liked was you said, I guess the readers say summer begins with MKA or whatever,
Yeah.
and then
And
you said you want to go ahead and tell everybody what you said.
Well, summer never ends with MKA, so we're going into the holidays. Start with
Yeah. I
MKA.
love it. I love it. I love it. I think it's so cool. I actually have a question about that, the writing, rewriting, revision mode. So you write every day. When you're working on the revisions, and so when you're going back through and you're doing the revisions and the rewriting and the editing part, um, you're not. Are you working on anything new at the time, or like are you just on those like in between when the editor's reading it and getting those back? Are you on a hiatus? Are you on a break, or how do you do that?
Well, no, I don't usually start another project until the project that I've handed in is complete.
Ah, that's very good.
Um, it's hard for me to switch gears from the book I've completed to a book that I'm just starting to work on. So usually it isn't until um, the revisions are totally in. Sometimes it overlaps and I'm doing copy edits at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, but
Mm-hmm.
usually my year is divided up into writing and then revisions, and then you go into pre-publication mode, which means you're getting ready to go out on tour, you're doing
Mm-hmm.
all the marketing stuff, you're in discussions with your publisher about all that kind of stuff. So it's a year-round business. I don't really have
Time
um,
off.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you're your own boss, you don't have any time off.
I know. It's so weird. I know what you mean. Like I feel like that's one of the things. Like people say, "Oh, you're doing this or you're doing that," and it's like, yeah, but it doesn't. It's not like it just stops. Like
No, it
sometimes I'm
never
working at stuff
stops.
until like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yep.
and yeah. So but I love it. I mean, I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. Um, Here's another question, and we're gonna take the break at the 3:30 mark, everybody. But this question comes from one of our regular listeners. I want to give a shout out to them, Darlene Dremel and Terry Dremel. But this one is from Darlene. She's actually last year when you sent that book package. She's the lady that I gave the book package to because she is a fan of yours and a reader, and she really enjoyed the book package that you sent.
Oh, I
So
love hearing that.
yeah, and so she says great news about having Mary Kay Andrews on the interview. She says, does she ever write herself into the story or characters? And she says, I really enjoy her books. And that's Darlene
Uh,
Dremel.
well, I don't intentionally write my personal self into the book, but every book has some of my DNA. It's the story is filtered through my sensibility. It's told with my sense of humor and my writing style. So I never intend for it to be me. But of course, it has my fiction has my fingerprints all over it.
I think that's interesting. Do you feel like when you're writing characters that you borrow or lend different emotions to those characters, or do you feel like they once you've created them, they've kind of taken on their own life, and then this is like, wow, this is what this character's doing?
Yeah, usually once I've created a character, if I step back and let them sort of decide what they want to do, I just am sort of there taking dictation if it's going well. Now, if it's not going well, I struggle and I wonder, oh gosh, would this character really do that? Or what does this character look like? I'm not really sure. I got to think about that. I never want to repeat myself, so I don't want to have characters that seem like, oh yeah, she had that character 3 books ago.
Right,
So it's
right,
it is a challenge after this many years. I've been doing this for 30 years now. It's a challenge to keep the story fresh.
right, right. That is, I think, one of the interesting things about storytelling is that all the elements are already there. They've already been around. Storytelling's been around, but the way that the individual writer or author tells that story, I feel like, is really interesting. I've always heard this, and I'd like to hear your take on it. But that readers and audiences, they want the same thing, only new. Have you ever heard that
Yeah,
before?
they want something that's familiar.
Right,
Um, but they don't want it to be too familiar,
right.
if you know what I mean. So, and that's a challenge.
What when you were creating the new characters, do you? I know you say you don't outline or anything like that, but you do keep a notebook, and that kind of thing. Do you write when you write a synopsis for the book? Do you write kind of like a synopsis for your characters too?
Yeah, sometimes I'll write a brief biography for them. I'll tell myself what they look like, where they're from. I knew when I started writing the Newcomer that Letty, her sister, her sister is actually her half sister.
Mm.
I knew that her mother had had kind of a gypsy life, and that they had a grandmother, a beloved grandmother that helped raise them, and that their mother really was not in their lives. And I knew that Letty had gone to New York to try to be an actress, and you know, her heart maybe wasn't really in it. She had an okay career going, but um, and so I knew that about her. And then the more I wrote, the more she revealed herself to me.
Mm. How does I always find that fascinating when I'm writing. How does that feel for you? Like when character, you're just getting to know them and you're writing about them and you're just getting to know them, and then like you have that little revelation moment. How do you feel when you get that little eureka moment with the character?
Well, it's exciting, you say to yourself, "Oh, that's why she did what she did." Or
Right.
she meets a character, um, and you're surprised, and you think, "Oh, what's this guy doing in the story? I didn't know this guy was going to be here." And then you write a scene, and something reveals itself to you, or the
Hmm.
possibilities are revealed to you, and so that sort of gives you a launching pad into the next scene that you're writing.
I think that's really cool. Because I'm a new fiction writer myself. I've only been doing it for a couple of years, and I just started publishing a couple of years ago, self-publishing. And one of the things that I've done is just try to learn and study, and constantly trying to improve my skills in writing. And I find that part the most fascinating. Where because I've tried doing the detailed outline. I've tried doing the loose outline. I do the synopsis, but what I find most of the time is when I'm writing just the first draft or the discovery draft. I like to write like you're talking about, where I kind of have an idea of where I want them to end up. Like if I want to go to
Right.
Tybee Island, I know I want to go to Tybee, but
Right.
I don't know which road I want to take to get there from downtown yet. You know what I mean?
Okay,
Like
there's only one that you can take, Adam, and it's US 80.
I know that, but I mean like from where I'm at right now. There's
Right.
only
Well, you could take Islands Expressway, or you could just go Victory
right,
Drive the whole
right,
way.
right. But yeah, the discovery draft is like and the writing is the only way that you can get the story right. That's the one way, right? But
The only way you do it is to do it.
yeah, that's one of the things I like what you said. This stuck with me last year as well, and it actually helped me write. Um, Doing the work, like you got to put your butt in the chair and write. And
Yeah.
there's, I know it sounds so crazy because people, and I know, and I'm definitely not, people don't ask me all the time like you get asked, but people do ask me, and I'm like, do they say, well, when do you write or whatever, and I'm like, I write whenever I can, but I try to keep a schedule when I try to make time for it. And they'll say, oh, I want to write a book, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. I'm like, well, start writing. You don't need anything. Like you need a pencil and a paper, or a pen and a notepad, or you don't have to have any fancy anything. Just write. And then
That's the truth.
one of the things I've heard too, you probably heard this a lot too, but that they're like, oh, my first draft is just garbage. I You probably are at the level where you have certain revisions or whatever, but for the most part your story is going to be like maybe 90% done, I think. But somebody new like me, I know that my story is not going to be 90% done, but I've got to get it done. I've got to write the first one. you know
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my motto is, you can't fix what you ain't wrote.
Yeah, I love
You
that.
can't. You can't fix a blank page.
I
But
love that.
if you throw some words, even some terrible words and some paragraphs that are terrible, if you do it, then you can always go back and you can polish it and you can revise it and you can make it something. But unless you start writing it, you don't have anything to work with. So even, you have to get over this idea that everything has to be perfect. I think people would be shocked and appalled if they saw what some of my first drafts look like. They're messy, and names change, and motivations change, and all kinds of things change. But
Did you
the reason
ever?
I
Go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was going to ask you. Did you ever misspell a character's name that like for
Oh,
example,
sure.
I had a character named Devin, and I started calling him Devlin instead of Devin. Like I don't know where or when it changed over when I was writing. I was like, wait a minute. When I went back to read it for the edits or whatever, I was like, wait a minute, is his name Devin or Devlin? I can't remember.
Yeah, every mistake that you can make, I had made it. I've put, I'm notorious for being bad about a sense of direction. So, um, I'll have a character getting on I-285 in Atlanta, and getting off I-285, and then onto a highway that doesn't even cross 285.
Oh, I gotcha.
And
I gotcha.
yeah, and copy editors don't always catch it, but readers do, and they always let you know.
That's a badge of honor for them, definitely.
Hmm.
All right, so thank you, Mary Kay. We're going to be back in a few minutes with the station break and all. We've got to do all that good stuff. I really appreciate you talking with us today. And when we get back, I'd like to talk some more about. We've got another reader question. And
Okay.
we could talk some more about, well, you've got the new book as well. I mean, you've got the Newcomer, and then you have the new holiday book. So,
That's right.
yeah. So, all right, everybody, you're tuning in today to the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer, here with my special guest, Mary Kay Andrews. And this is Sebastian Messer playing live in the studio. And then we're going to have our station announcements. So please stay tuned for the second half with Mary Kay Andrews.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming, and it doesn't just mean that we are a voice for the community. It also means that we are counting on the community to keep us going, and you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming because many others have stepped forward to do their part. Now do your part by joining our community of listener donors. Go to WRUU.org right now and make a one-time or monthly donation, and thank you for supporting Savannah's community radio station, 107.5 FM.
This is WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This portion of WRUU Savannah Soundings programming is provided by listeners and by Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day Natural Foods has been serving Savannah's healthy food and supplement needs since 1978. It is located at the corner of Bull Street and Park Avenue. They have available online ordering and curbside delivery, and now a walk-up window for smoothies, juices, and sandwiches from the deli. They are open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 12 to 5:30 p.m. on Sunday. More information can be found at brighterdayfoods.com.
All right, and we are back, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today and listening. If you missed the first half of the show, don't worry. You can listen to Mary Kay and I talking on my podcast. You can go to youtube.com/Adam Messer. or The Adam Messer Show on your favorite podcast apps like Audible, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much everywhere else. So if you've missed the first part, don't worry. You can catch it on the podcast probably tonight or early tomorrow. So, all right. So Mary Kay, thank you again for being with me on the show today. And I've really liked these reader questions that we've had. I think they've been pretty good.
Yeah, they're interesting. I love listening and talking to readers, figuring out what they're curious about.
I agree. Like I said, I just started writing and self-publishing, and one of my favorite things is hearing from the readers, especially when they really enjoy the story or they connect with a character or whatever. And I know that you've been doing this for like 30 years. What is something that maybe comes to mind over the years of like a reader's connection or review with your books that that kind of stood out for you?
I've had readers. The internet has been great because readers can email.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry. My connection broke there. 1 second here. Okay, there you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the connection broke there, but we're back.
Sure.
Okay, so you said over the years with the internet?
Yeah, readers can connect with me through the internet, and they email me and tell me, what they liked about a book or didn't like. And I had a reader some years ago say um, that I forget what book it was that she was reading, but her mom was in a nursing home, and she was in basically in hospice care. And so she said every day I would go to the nursing home and I would sit in a chair by my mom's bedside, and I would read aloud to her from your book. And she said I would read a chapter a night, and every night, in this still and this quiet, it was just me reading this story to my mom. And she
Oh
said
man, wow.
I think she hung on until the book was done. And she said, and she told me that she just treasured those moments because she and her mom were in a darkened room, but they were in the bubble of that story and that world. And it took her and her mom away from the thinking about her mom. Her mom was, nearing the end of her life. And so I've never forgotten that story. And
Wow.
I've had other readers let me know that they've had, some pretty moving experiences sharing. What I love about books is it's an experience you can share. You can sit around at the pool, or you can sit around at your book club, or sit at a bar and talk to the guy in the bar stool next to you, and you both discover, hey, we're both reading the same book, and it gives you a common interest and a bond, and I love that.
I love that about reading as well, because a really good book, you feel like you're experiencing it, and you feel like you're the character, running through and doing all the different things or whatever. And and I think that's one of the things when you talk with someone who's read the same book and they felt the same way, you're like, oh man, when like Letty ran and did this or whatever, you're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think that could be a lot of fun.
Hmm.
All right, so we have another question here. Let me pull it up. Let's see. This one comes from the group Friends in Fiction, and it's from Stephanie. I hope I'm saying her name right. Stephanie Skellen Brelsford. And it says, any plans for a sequel to The Newcomer? Love the book and the characters and would love to see where they are in the future.
No, I don't have any thoughts about doing a sequel to the Newcomer. I'm working on next summer's book, which has a whole new set of characters and a new setting. It's actually next summer's book is actually set in Savannah.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's fun to create these characters, but usually, there have been some exceptions. Usually, by the time the book is done and it gets published, I'm down the road with I'm getting to know a whole new set of characters and a whole new story. So. Um, I don't know I don't know what could happen next with Letty, and maybe I'll find out in the future. I don't even know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I never know from book to book. All I can see right now is next summer's book. I pretty much know what that is.
That's really cool. Talking about your next published book, you have a holiday book coming out, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Can,
the Santa suit.
okay, can you talk about that one?
Sure. I got the idea. I was in the North Carolina mountains with on a little riding retreat with my friend Patty Callahan, and
Actually, Patty was
I,
on the show probably like a month and a half ago or so. She's
yeah,
really
yeah,
nice.
yeah, for surviving Savannah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we were discussing. I had just done the revisions for the Newcomer, and I said, I'm kind of thinking I'd like to do a Christmas book again, but I don't know what my editor and my agent are going to say about that. I have a contract for next summer's book, and that's what I'm supposed to be working on. But this idea has just been nagging at me. So I started working on it, and it's about a young woman. Um, she has just come out of a divorce, and um, she decides that it's time for a major change in her life. So she decides she wants to buy an old white farmhouse in the mountains in North Carolina. And so she goes online and she finds this farmhouse and she buys it sight unseen. She puts in an offer, the seller takes her offer, and she packs up her dog, and the two of them move to North Carolina. And when they arrive at this little white farmhouse, Four Roses Farm it's called, um, she's met at the door and the driveway by the real estate agent, um, who is not who she not who she envisioned the real estate agent to be. His name is Ezra, and she thought Ezra would be an old man in a sweater vest, and it's actually a young guy. And she has plans for this house, and but when she gets inside, she discovers that the previous owners, have left it furnished,
Hmm.
and she's got all of her furnishings coming on a truck. So she has no interest in keeping any of these kind of beat up farmhouse furnishings. But so the real estate agent hangs around a little bit, and she starts emptying closets because she wants to put her own stuff in the closet. And on a shelf in this closet in the main bedroom, she finds a big wrapped box. And when she takes it out of the closet and lifts the lid, she finds this beautifully made vintage Santa Claus suit. It's red velvet and it's lined with satin and it has real fur, and she's just astonished that somebody would leave that behind. And that agent tells her, well, the family that owned this farm originally, Bob Rose and his wife, they were the community Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus, and that's what they did for years and years.
Oh,
They dressed up
wow.
they dressed up in their Santa suit, and the whole house would be decorated for Christmas. So, and my character has no interest in any of this, but anyway, the Santa suit ends up sort of being the catalyst for my character staying in this community and coming to love it and to be a part of it, and sort of magic happens all because of this magical Santa suit.
My wife loves Hallmark movies,
Ah,
and that sounds like it would be a perfect Hallmark movie.
well, I think it would be too, so we'll see.
Yeah. She watches those and she loves them. My girls love them. And, I think that has all the trimmings for, one of those beautiful little cozy Christmas movies. So that's pretty cool. And you said that,
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, well, maybe that will happen.
That,
Maybe it will happen.
anybody listening out there, you should hit Mary Kay up for a movie. That sounds like a great movie. You said that that came to you after like you had been working ahead on a schedule for the Newcomer, right?
Yeah, I'd finished up the Newcomer and was supposed to be working on next summer's book, but this idea wouldn't leave me alone. So I just kind of went with it and wrote it in about. Well, I started in October and I finished it in January. So
Oh wow,
yeah, which is very quick for me.
yeah, that's really great. On the year to year, like this year, things are starting to kind of open up a little bit, right?
Yes.
And but people are still we're still needing to take precautions and be safe and stuff like that. What's the rest of the year look like for you with your schedule? are you going to still do the Zoom calls? Do you have any like book
Yeah,
signings planned or?
oh, we're scheduled. Yeah, we're scheduled for. We have guests scheduled for Friends in Fiction into next fall.
Oh wow.
So yeah, we're pretty booked up for that. So we'll be hanging around on Wednesday nights for a good while yet, and then we will. Four of the five of us, I think, will be in Beaufort, North Carolina, in June. I think it starts June 23rd. It's their historic Beaufort weekend, and so we're going to be doing some appearances in Beaufort, North Carolina. If your listeners are need something to do, want to take a little road trip up the coast to Beaufort. Now this is North Carolina, not Beaufort, South Carolina. Two
Right,
different
right, right.
two different towns and two different states. And the rest of the time I'm going to be working on next summer's book.
That's nice. And obviously, hopefully even next year will be even better because I mean, like the year's already almost June, right? And so hopefully next year we'll be able, to do the events and stuff like that as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I did some in-person events for the Newcomer. I had a signing with E-Shaver and
hmm
then did a big event at Seaside Sisters out on Tybee Island, and both Shavers and Seaside Sisters have signed copies of the book. So if your listeners
Nice.
want a signed copy, they can contact those stores and get them. Did a little bit of a tour down in Florida since the book is set in Florida. And I may add a couple of in-person events now that everybody well, I've been vaccinated for many months now, and the events I did in Florida, people were vaccinated, and people were trying to, as long as people are trying to be courteous and stay safe, then I feel safe about it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's pretty common with a lot of the different in-person events and signings and meet and greets and that kind of stuff. I know I usually do this event every year called Books and Brews Savannah, and we raise funds for the Ronald McDonald Charities, the Coastal Empire,
Yeah.
and I had to cancel all of those last year because of the pandemic and all. But we've got our first one scheduled for July, and I'm actually looking forward to it because I love raising money for the Ronald McDonald Charities,
Yeah.
and so I'm looking forward to that. It's one of the things that I've kind of missed is being able to go out and see
Yeah,
people and
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. I missed connecting with
yeah,
readers and booksellers, and it was great that we were able to pivot and do online events. But I think now people are really ready to get out in real
right.
life and get out back in the world and sort of hope that things are getting back close to normal.
Yeah, and it's nice the way that you do your events too because they're always really small and intimate, where people can spend a little bit more one-on-one time with you,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
and I think that's nice compared to like some places they like say like a convention or whatever where there might be a couple hundred to 1,000 people. That's really difficult to be able to spend any kind of time one-on-one with
Yeah.
somebody. So well, that's cool. So do you have any other news or anything like that you've got going on?
No, just the just the books. We finished. My husband and I spent. We bought another cottage on Tybee Island. We
Yeah.
closed on it right before the new year. So we spent. It was a 1935 two-story house. It had been a duplex for many years. So we bought that. And we spent the winter months working with our contractor, rehabbing it and furnishing it and fixing it up. So we had our first guest check into. It's called Coquina Cottage, and it's named after the beach house in my book um, from 2 summers ago. Um, the beach house in that book was called Coquina Cottage. So this is Coquina Cottage, and we just finished it this past week, and our first guest checked in for Memorial Day weekend, and we're excited about that. And
Oh, so is
now
it
I
like a little
just
bed and breakfast, or is it what is it
no, it's
like?
a vacation rental house. They're
Oh, okay,
managed.
okay,
Yep, yeah.
nice.
People can go to tybevacationrentals.com, and they can see what they're calling the Mary Kay Andrews collection. There are three houses now that we have bought and redone. The Breeze Inn is the first cottage we did. That was built in 1942, and we gutted that and totally redid it. And it's named after fictional motel in Savannah Breeze. And then we did another house almost 10 years ago. That one was called Ebb Tide. It's named after the beach house in Summer Rental, my novel of about 10 years ago, I guess. Summer Rental's been out that long. And then this year, uh, opportunity presented itself, and we bought another house and rehabbed it. So I guess I've got nothing left to do but write a book.
That's cool though. I mean, I think it's amazing, especially somebody, they want to come to beautiful Tybee Island and spend time, especially in a refurbished, updated, I guess everything, all the amenities and everything are
Yes,
updated,
yes,
right? And
everything has been updated, and it's a well, Coquina is a 5 bedroom, 3.5 bath house 2 blocks from the beach.
wow.
So, and what I hear from readers is that they love stepping into the world that I've created, because the houses are all furnished with vintage stuff that I've tracked down and dragged home and rehabbed, and my husband and I have painted it or redone it. So they're all each of the houses is one of a kind. You'll never see another one like it, because it's all vintage and it's all been redone, but it's all got the modern conveniences. Nobody wants to be at Tybee without air conditioning.
Right, right. Not anymore, for sure. So I really appreciate you being on the show today, Mary Kay. This has been wonderful, and I appreciate all that you do, especially for the community. I know that you give back, and like that cottage thing. That is really neat, because I've never heard of another author doing where people can do that, and they can kind of step into that that world. So I really think that's pretty awesome.
Well, it's been fun for me. It's a fun creative outlet.
Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful. So, we're going to wrap it up. And if you missed any of this, you can listen to the podcast later on. Don't worry, it'll be on the Adam Messer Show on your favorite podcasts. And then also, what you can do is you can go to marykandrews.com, and you can get more information about the Newcomer. If you're here in Savannah, Georgia, you can go right down the street from the station here to E. Shaver Booksellers. And Mary Kay, where did you say the other local bookstore where the signed ones
Oh,
are?
Seaside. It's Seaside Sisters Gift Shop on Tybee Island.
Oh, perfect. Even better. So,
Yep.
but thank you again, Mary Kay, for coming on the
My
show.
pleasure, Adam.
All
Great
right.
to talk to you today.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. It's been great talking with Mary Kay Andrews. And, like I said, you can listen to the podcast later on. And right now,